Thank you for staying with Friday Night. As earlier mentioned, schools continue to remain closed throughout the country, and therefore more and more parents are finding themselves with the unexpected and indeed challenging job or job title of teacher. Tonight in studio, we are talking homeschooling. If you're a parent or a guardian, you'll need to be taking tips from our guests in studio tonight, and I'll let them introduce themselves to you, starting with you.
Yeah, my name is Evelyn Kasina. I run a business called EveMinet, and we teach children on digital literacy and online safety. So how parents basically can transit to teaching online right now. Yeah.
Good. And I'm Nkrumah Mauncho, a father of 3. I homeschool, been doing it for about 7 years now, and currently actually president of Homeschooling Association, where a bunch of us parents got together and created this organization so that we can help parents who are looking to either transition into homeschooling or who are already homeschooling. What sort of resources you may need, what sort of help you may need, we'll be there for you.
Okay, so a lot of parents, and I saw interesting memes with parents saying that teachers should actually get pay rises and should get paid like 1 million because of how hectic they're finding this new arrangement. Let's begin with you, Nkrumah. You've done this for 7 years now. The pressure, I think, for the parents right now is how to recreate a classroom within the home environment. Let's go into, I mean, so there's this new arrangement, the kids are at home, it's a home environment, the TV is there, the gadgets are there, the sofa is there, the bedrooms are there, the toys are there. So how to recreate this into a classroom? Is it necessary?
And that's a good point. Is it necessary? If I would start from there, no, it's not necessary. School has been designed in such a way to handle multiple kids, and therefore the teacher has to be able to instruct and reach a vast number of different educational styles or learning styles. But in the home, it's you and your child. So you basically can make it into a home environment to make it so that your child is comfortable. And what comfort may look like would look differently into different homes. But the fact that the TV is there is not an indicator that distraction could be there. It can be a method or a tool to use for education. For instance, if I was to just talk about myself, we use a website called Khan Academy. And that's one good resource that we have been using just within our own home in terms of instructions. Because most of the lessons on YouTube, we just basically put it on our screen, and our different children, the different ages, take lessons from class. So it's not to recreate a school setting, it's to ensure that learning is happening. And how learning happens, you're the one to determine. Yes, you've got your guidelines as to what classes, what subjects your child should do, but it's to make sure that when those subjects are being adhered to, is that you're allowing your child to understand the material, as opposed to being talked to or talked at.
Right. Yeah. Evelyn, kids are used to a lot of structured activities in school, and when you talk about digital learning, even within the computer lab, there's a teacher at hand, an expert at hand to guide them. So in terms of a scheduled program for the kids in school, now we're being within the home environment, and for a lot of this activities actually being sent online digitally, how should parents approach this in terms of scheduling and the fact that parents are unlikely to be there an entire day guiding these children through this process?
First and foremost, I believe that most of the schools, if not all, are sending some sort of timetable with scheduled objectives of where the children were when they stopped school on Monday. And for most schools, we have a timetable, so we get to know we are doing certain subjects, when to take certain breaks. For me, what I've been advising the parents that I'm interacting with is try as much as possible to interact the child during the morning hours. Then if you have to use technology or digital, because right now everybody is sending you a tool or the other. I think at some point I had 159 websites. Try and see which website can help you achieve the objective of the child. Because at some point, I think everybody is thinking that all these websites are good, but not all of them are achieving. Because you asked him about which curriculum you're using. It's very important for parents to be able to know certain websites are offering certain curriculums. Maybe they are relevant for me, some are not. And when we are engaging, have your child know that, one, we are not on holiday, and number two, we need to adhere to screen time balance. So this is what it means. If you're going to use technology for learning, let it be, say, 30 minutes of actual learning. Then if you're going to transition to entertainment, we also need to discuss how much time, because then you don't want the children to start feeling like, I need to do Khan Academy, for instance, for just 30 minutes, and then I can watch a movie for the rest of the time. They need to be able to know we are going to continue trying as much as possible to still be in the school structure, which is not entirely very strict, but let's engage ourselves in learning. Let's use technology. Then if there is screen time, we can, for entertainment, we can use it probably in the afternoon when you
Screen time, very important point Evelyn has raised, Nkrumah, screen time, and with all these pop-ups on Corona and all these all this information and statistics that are online, how then to keep the child focused on the learning time and indeed the content of what it is that they're doing, because I don't assume, or do you actually have to stand right by your child or sit by your child as they go through their digital programs?
No, you won't have to. For us, for instance, if I was just to use me as an example, for the past 7 years, we started off with a regimented approach whereby we sat down with the child and made sure that they were working through their coursework. And when we did that, we found that we brought in the rigidity of the classroom setting into the home, and they're all sitting in the dining room, so we're all working through our dining. One was in the dining room, one was in the living room, and then we figured that no, this rigidity is not helping learning, because now it's going into that process that you have to finish math in order to do English. So we figured, let's take away this rigidity, let's take away the idea of class time, and let's involve this lesson itself. So for instance, if I was to use math as an example, my daughter, who's 13, was doing her math work, and we figured, she's doing her addition, subtraction, and division. Instead of just looking at the curriculum, we said, let's go to the store. So we went into Carrefour, and as we were picking the goods, I said, make sure you tell me how much the cart is worth. How much are we going to pay for groceries today? So now she's doing mental math, and as we go along. So it's taking the classroom into the real world, so that the lessons they're learning them in a manner that is more exciting.
And more practical.
Exactly, more involving, making it a little more wholesome than just sitting at home with the book in front of you, working away.
And I love that you said that, because most parents are unfamiliar with the current approaches to certain subjects. You in particular say that you're using the Canadian curriculum or system of education. But even right here within the country, for parents who perhaps have children in international schools, or even those who are doing the Kenyan program, some parents are unfamiliar with certain approaches to certain subjects, especially things like numeracy. I mean, parents look at these things and they go like, wow, what is this? So how let me start with you very quickly before I come to Evelyn. How to grapple with that?
Well, it's the question is not necessarily that you're now becoming the teacher and the end and be all. The resources that you've been given are a guide, right? So you can use those resources to your advantage. Maybe it'll require you waking up a little earlier to just go through the material so that you know what your child is going to be learning for the day, and then familiarize yourself with the content. Because in as much as your child is in, let's say, standard 2 or standard 3, I mean, the content itself is not difficult. If you familiarize yourself with it, now the question is how you're able to allow your child to go through the content, given the guidelines that you've been given by your teacher. May require some thinking outside the box here. May require you just to be a little more innovative in how you approach the subject. But at the end of the day, you have to walk out the content with your child. Now, in homeschooling, we've got this term. We say, we're not in this alone. You're not an island on your own. So you've got other homeschoolers around who can help you, walk with you. And that became a huge benefit for us, even when we started off. Because in an area where I knew was a little difficult for me, especially with my older child, well, I leaned on a friend of mine who has the strength. So therefore, it becomes more of a community rather than an isolated island where it's just me and my children and nobody else is coming. I know Corona is not helping us out right now, but in terms of the children themselves and the family setting, with a guided approach, you and your children and the people around you, I'm sure the parents wouldn't have a difficult time.
On the same, Evelyn, when parents have difficulty with some of these subjects and some of these topics, according to Nkrumah, you should put in some time prior to the lessons and just, do some research, prepare a little bit before the lesson starts, similar to what teachers do. What is your view?
I think at this point, parents actually need to start understanding the learning abilities of their children, the different learning styles.
That's right.
Because in the school setup, I feel like the teachers just teach, theater style. At this point, you might find your child is more kinesthetic learning, so they're seeing and they want to do. Some are visual, some are audio. So when you do realize that your children all have unique, different abilities to retain content, you can use that to your advantage.
Yes.
And I think at some point, depending also on the age, because we have kids who are very young and others are a bit older, like I have an 8 and a 5-year-old. The 5-year-old's attention span is very little.
That's true.
I have to keep engaging them. And when we're using things like, we're doing mathematics, for instance, we use props, and that's when the toys come out. So like the other day, we decided to do mathematics with Jenga blocks, and that was fun. And I felt like it extended the capacity for her to retain a class for at least 20 minutes without that disruption. You also mentioned the fact that, you're at home, the screens are there, the couch is there. There's a lot of distraction at home, and even when we're doing a survey today and we're asking parents, are you coming up with any kind of structure? For very many people, they were like, I can't cope, because first I have to go to school, I have to work, and some of them feel like if I'm at home, I have to cook, I have to wash clothes, I have to do all these other chores. So how do I split my activities during the day? Some have to work at home as well, and then still monitor the children who are learning there. At some point, you'll be like, you guys want to go outside and play, just go outside and play, because then what do you do?
And hold on to that thought. Parents are asking, missing a few weeks or months of classroom time, is that going to put my child behind? For instance, an example, my child, Joshua, he's 9 years old. The school has written to us and asked that they submit their exam papers latest Monday. So they've missed an entire week of school, and now they have an exam that they have to sit for. So the question is, missing a few weeks of classroom time, is that going to put the child behind? Your observation as a home schooling parent.
So that's an interesting question, because each curriculum has its own mandates, if so to speak. So the one who is using a curriculum that is a bit rigid then requires the rigidity that will go with it, because now your school is telling you that you have to be able to hand in an exam. Therefore, if you miss the lessons that were supposed to have been done for your child to sit for the exam on Monday, then there may be an issue. So the question to that parent, the answer to that, solution to that parent, I would say, is that at this point, you have relegated, if anything, the learning capacity to the school. Now it's on your hands. So you have to step up. Unfortunately, you have to step up. And by stepping up, I basically look at it as, hey, look, we know you've got an exam on Monday. These are the lessons that need to be done. Let's put in a timetable. Fun timetable. Don't make it rigid again, because again, you're at home. Fun timetable where the child is learning the lesson, but at the same time knowing full well that, we've got an exam on Monday.
So this conversation, a parent here feels is very structured for the modern folk and for the probably the city folk. So for somebody who's watching us from the rural area, those children are at home as well, and they still have to continue learning because schools are closed countrywide. What would you advise a parent watching from Ushago, rural, Machakos, Kisumu, Kisii? What approach should they take?
I think right now the government is really, really doing a good job to make sure that...
because there's the audio classes on KBC.
So there's the audio classes, and it's on KBC, which means the transmission is countrywide. And on Monday, that's the 23rd, on Monday, the Edu TV, which is free to air as well, is going to be broadcasting classrooms and then transmitting also that to YouTube. So I think pretty much right now, we can't say that there's a child who's not being covered. Perhaps we could think about the special learners, because we have special learners in school, to just get to find out how can we make them get content, or how can we help the parents who have special learners at home try and use the similar content that we have. And I know because Safaricom and I know Communications Authority have been putting up internet throughout the country, we can't really say that we don't have an infrastructure. At this point, I think it is, as he said, right now teaching has become a parent's job, right? And in CBC, actually, parents are called co-facilitators. So we are called facilitators. I think right now parents need to change their mindset in terms of I can't do this, to starting to find out what exactly can I do within my capacity, within the time that I have to do this. And for those people who have special needs children, they need to at least start coming out and asking, especially the KICD, what tools can we use? And people like us actually use things like Google Transcribe that if you have, like, for instance, a deaf student, you can speak into your phone, and it transcribes that particular content. So it's not all lost. I think we just need to take it a step at a time, but we need to also appreciate that the government is doing something about it.
It's not all lost, Kuma, because we're pressed for time. As a parent who has homeschooled your children for 7 years, there's a viewer here who is saying the purpose of school is to create great sheep. So there are parents who feel that they're incapable of actually creating this great sheep because, number one, they feel they're not well equipped to homeschool. For you, has this been a success story? Are you confident bringing your children, into the world, into the corporate world later in life, after being homeschooled? Are they going to be able to match those that have actually been within institutions of learning?
Well, that's a great question. And it was one of the questions I asked before I started homeschooling. In fact, right now, I'm a big champion of homeschooling, but I wasn't. Right. My wife was the champion of homeschooling, trying to push us to get into homeschooling. But once I did, I started seeing the difference. Because one, conversations are happening around the table. Learning is not only relegated into the classroom. Learning is happening everywhere at every time. When we're going shags, right, we're on the highway, we'll stop. There's escarpments. Let's have a discussion. That's geography right there happening. When we get to shags and we're looking at the tea plantation, well, we're talking about tea. Oh, let's look at the economies of scale. Let's even for tea. That's business. That's agriculture happening. So to say that my child will not be able to fit into what we call corporate society, well, do I really want her to? I mean, that's a question. It's her. Let her determine. With the direction she wants to go, then we will be able to enable her to do that. So we found that, if anything, we've opened up the opportunities for our children, 3 girls that we have, to be able to not only just compete in terms of society, but thrive. And I think that's the bottom line for us, is that our children are thriving. And this conversation that I'm telling you, if we are to sit down around with all the other schooling parents out there, they'll tell you the same thing.
There are parents who want to know how they can reach you. There's a parent who's actually asking, how can I join the Homeschooling Association?
Yes.
Because, you don't know how, you don't know how this thing will play out.
True.
You don't know how long the children will be required to stay home.
Very true.
So parents are asking, how can they join this association? How can they reach you?
So right now, our association is called Holistic Educators in Africa and the Diaspora, because we figure, can we create our stories, us as Africans? Can we create our stories? And what kind of curriculum, if CDC actually goes into place, and as it's being rolled out as time goes on, what will that look like for our children, 10, 15 years down the road? So HEAD is our acronym, HEAD, H-E-A-D, and you can find us at head.africa. If you go there, you'll be able to reach our phone number, and somebody will definitely take care of you, as in give you the guidelines as to what you would need to do in order, if you're to set up a homeschooling environment, what would that look like? Because one question you asked me was about the curriculum that we use. All of us use different curriculums. There's one called eclectic. And there's the IGCSE. Some are using even the CBC right now. We chose the Canadian because that's where our kids were born, and we moved back to Kenya, and they'll probably transition back in there. But from a curriculum standpoint, we felt that it is the one that has not only the rigor, but also it's a bit relaxed. So our children are not being caught up with this exam fever, but they're being caught up with learning. And is the content important? So once you create that environment in your home, you'll find that your own children will begin to speak to you. Anxiety levels will reduce. Not only just reduce, but a conversation around critical thinking, you will notice it within the home. Because the kind of questions my daughter, who's 13, asks me, phenomenal. I'm like, I at her age wasn't asking those kind of questions.
Thanks for that. Evelyn, talking about anxiety, children want to go back to school, and they're saying that to their parents. This new vibe is not their thing. They don't understand what's going on. So how should parents, just as we wind up, how should parents deal with that situation? The fact that children already are feeling that gap. They want to go back to school.
I think one of the things I'm trying to help parents engage is, first, ask your children what anxieties they're facing. Explain to them that this is probably a temporary thing, because nobody knows how it will pan out, and then discuss the levels of the gravity of what they understand, because different children are also taking it differently. I think they're also panicking when they see our reaction, because when we see the news and we panic, then we transmit that panic to them, and the anxiety obviously goes up. So, I mean, for now, because even children are really excited to doing video conferencing, let them video conference with their friends. Right now, everybody is doing Zoom, and I think Zoom has really like, taken over. Let them sit down and also experience how the future will be. He said something very important, like right now, are we taking our children to corporate workplaces? Their work environment has really changed. In fact, their jobs don't exist at the moment. So if we are able to also just look at where their jobs are going, and in light of what is happening right now, working at home is going to be the in thing, right? If you look at Airbnb, if you look at Uber, our children will not have homes, our children will not drive cars. So if we are able to even look at the online studies and the kind of tools that we are letting our children learn, what is the end in mind? Is it just for this particular season because we are on lockdown, or do you also want to impact knowledge for the future because their future has changed?
I thank you for that. They'd like to know how to reach you as well. A lot of questions coming in which we cannot really answer here because of the time constraints. So how can people reach you? eveminet.co.ke is our website. All our platforms are there. Evelyn Casino on Facebook. Evelyn M. Casino on Twitter. Okay, so this is Kruma and Evelyn guiding us along the homeschooling process and telling you that there's no need to worry. Kruma here has done it for 7 years, 3 children who he says are brilliant. He has done it and he's got a testimony. Evelyn as well guiding parents on how to ride this wave and indeed bring out a better child within the home environment. Well, thank you so much for your time. Let's continue the conversation using #Friday Night. Many thanks for watching. Good night.